Okay, so some pretty old school stats here, and if you're looking to improve and know where you need to improve, these are not going to help. Now, hitting the fairway is important, but you need to know how far you're hitting the ball down the fairway, and penalty shots is definitely something you should be recording. Most golfers will reduce their score by reducing penalties and not by making more birdies, guaranteed. So if you reduce the penalties, keep an eye on your penalty shots, and lose some of those, obviously scores get lower. Hitting the fairways, yes, is important. If I was 150 yards out from the fairway compared to the rough, on average, I would do better. But if I was 150 yards out on the fairway compared to 90 yards away in the rough, probably going to score better from the rough. I'm going with 4 less clubs, for example. So you need to know distance, you need to know penalties. Fairways on their own are not going to help. You might hit the ball in the semi-rough, 12 times on the golf course, and it's completely fine. You need distance, you need to know penalties as well. Now, greens in regulation, yes, handy knowing that, but it's so heavily correlated to lower scores. If you hit more greens, you'll shoot lower. So without proximity and without knowing when you miss the green where it goes, again, it's a fairly irrelevant stat. If you hit more greens, scores get lower. You're recording your score anyway, so it's pretty much the same thing. You need to know proximity, especially the better players out there. If you're hitting every single green, but you're 70 foot away all the time, it's not great. Likewise, if you're missing every green or you're missing at the wrong place, you need to know where you're missing, how far away you are, and then how close you get on the next shot, because there's obviously better places to miss the green. So proximity is massive, not just greens. My least favourite and the most pointless stat is number of putts. Like if I miss every single green, chip it to 1 inch away, 18 putts, woohoo, 18 putts is great. Doesn't mean a great day putting, it just means I chipped it really close and missed every single green. Likewise, if I'm 60 foot away every time and 2 putt everything, and that's 36 putts, doesn't sound great, but that's actually outperformed a pro from that distance. So 60 foot, you should not be 2 putting from, but if you do, you have 36 putts, looks horrific, is actually brilliant. So they're very old school stats, so you don't need to be using those. There's so many apps around out there. I use Clipped, Arcos, ShotScope, Spider One. There's so many out there. The TaylorMade one is pretty good as well if you want a slightly cheaper one. There's a lot of apps out there and GPS things. You can probably do a bit more, especially the players that are keen to improve, need to get a bit more information than this. If you don't want to use an app, you need to just focus a bit more on one element of your game. So rather than recording a lot of stuff that isn't going to help, just pick certain things. If you're working on your driving, you go, okay, how far do I hit it? How many times do I get in trouble? That's it. Even things like left and right is kind of irrelevant because you don't know the intent of your shot, or when you look back at it, you might know the intent because you don't know where the flag was. So if there's an out of bounds left or flag on the left, let's say, for example, my bad shots go left. If I'm playing on a course, which I had done in the past, where the out of bounds or trouble's left-hand side, on my stats, everything's right, because I just avoid the trouble. So on a range, I hit like pulls and draws, or pull draws. On a golf course, trouble left, I make sure I aim right and I might block it. So without intent of shot, direction is also fairly irrelevant. So not the most up-to-date set of stats here. If you are not using an app, like I say, be specific with what you're measuring. It might be how close do you hit the ball in terms of proximity from 100 to 150 yards, if that's what you're working on. So if you're not going to record everything with an app, because it's too much to do on your own on a scorecard, then pick something very specific and do it better, rather than just generic numbers that were pretty much old school and outdated.